Hello, y'all. Welcome back to the Cookie Chat. It's Melissa with Missy P Sweets and my Miss co-host over here.
I'm Chelsea with Rolling in the Dough AZ. Actually, be this way.
No, that I'm pointing on my screen. I'm pointing to you.
Oh, on my screen,
I'll
you're
do
that way.
both. But we are so excited you guys are here. We are your two basic bakers, co-hosts of the Cookie Chat, this channel right here, talking all things baking, business, life, small business, entrepreneurship. I mean, tutorials, all the things. So if you have not already, go ahead and like and subscribe down below. We would love to have you so you don't miss anything. And also, Chelsea, can you tell them what they can find on our Patreon?
You can get extras and above. So if you love our content over here on YouTube, we try and give more behind the scenes, more specific tutorials just for our Patreons. Patreon specific.
Sorry. Trying to hydrate.
Patreon specific videos, questions and answers, all of that fun stuff. So if you want to dive deeper into the basic baker world, join us over on our Patreon, which you can find in the link below, or you can find it over on our Instagram page, which is the social media that we like to frequent. So
Yes, that's right. And we have released some new summer merch that's super, super, super cute, if I do say so myself. And they do get discounts. Our top tier over there does get discounts to all of that stuff. So
yes,
we would love to see you guys over there. But Chelsea, I feel like we're bookended with our hair waves.
right. We just go into one another. It's what we do. I
How's the
love it.
Arizona heat right now?
Oh, it's actually, I should say this week is actually cooler. It's only 106
Yeah.
because we're in monsoon season.
Yeah.
So it's just really
What does
muggy
that
right now.
mean? I saw you
Mon-
post that on Instagram,
Do
and
you
I
guys not
wasn't
have
quite sure what that
monsoons?
meant. Oh, like the winter storm or the summer storms that come through? We know. I mean, we'll randomly maybe over the lakes. Sometimes we get them kind of like over the lakes and stuff. We did get a couple when I was at the lake house this past weekend, but not really like in the burbs. I mean, nothing crazy.
They're like these huge, summer storms, but it is a lot of wind and dirt. And so it literally makes like you can see the monsoon wall like across the
Ah.
valley. So it's like a dirt wall. And if you're driving through it, most of the time you lose complete visibility. You have to like pull over to the side of the
Oh,
road.
this is not rain. This is dirt.
Oh, it comes with rain. So you have like really sharp winds, again, like dust devils carrying, plus the rain beating. So you usually like trees and structures and stuff will fall because it's like, I don't want to say it's a tornado because it's not. But if
Yeah.
you look up images, it's insane. You can literally see like the wall of it travel.
Do you get any
And
warning that it's coming? Like with tornadoes, there's sirens and stuff.
no,
Like this
I
is
mean,
no,
the
it
warning
just
is all of a
comes.
sudden it goes black outside and you're like, where did the sun go?
Oh
And then
my
you see the
goodness.
whipping wind. Yeah. So
So do you
my
end up
poor
with just like sand and stuff everywhere?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, dirt, sand. That's why I'm like, there's no point in washing my car right now because the mixture of it
I
creates like a
mean,
mud.
yeah.
So, yeah, the only like thing that really, not, I shouldn't say the only, one of the big things that scare people is that it will knock out the electricity because it's so
Mm,
hot. So I
mhm.
remember growing up, we went like 4 days without electricity at one point because
Oh
the power
no.
lines got
Do
damaged.
many people have generators?
Oh, no, girl.
No, that's not
Like,
a go-to. Okay.
no, because I mean, we just pretty much run our AC all year long.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, we don't have I mean, some houses might, but we have it
Yeah.
for camping, so we could hook something up.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, it's a beast, but it just leaves so much humidity, and we are not a humid state. I almost posted
Yeah.
it the other day. Our humidity typically sits around like 3 to 6%,
Yeah.
and the other day it was like at 39, and I was like, ooh. So
Welcome. That's what we have.
I know. So Arizona's a mix. So yeah.
That's
How is your
right.
summer going?
It's good. I feel like I was better prepared this summer with just kind of like having the girls in some more camps than I did last year. And with Mike working out of the house, like that's a struggle. And they're at an age where there's some bickering and things there. I was more prepared on how to handle a work schedule and where to scale back and things like that. But
Mhm.
it's all just a learning curve. I feel like that kind of brings us right into this week's
It does.
episode.
Yes, yes.
of
So
just mom life and mom struggles. And there's I don't know that we have a percentage, but what would you guess is the percentage of women or men in our
mhm,
business that have kids?
I would say over 80%. I'm
I would
gonna
say too.
venture to guess. Or they're like,
Yeah,
right at the age of they're trying to start a
starting
family
the
or just
family.
beginning. Yeah, so I would say more large percentage of them are family
Yeah, yeah. When you
age.
see that a baker is pregnant or just starting the family, what are some immediate thoughts that go through your head?
Oh man. I don't know. I guess I always just relate it back to sleep. Like,
Yeah.
well, you're already kind of prepared for this because of I'm sure at one point or another you've pulled a late night on cookies and I'm
Uh-huh.
like that running on minimal sleep. I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess I go to that is my
Yeah.
first is definitely. What's yours? I'm afraid.
Well, no, it's definitely excitement. It's definitely excitement because I've seen this from quite a few different full-time cookers. Is part of it is they want to be stay-at-home moms and they feel like this
Mhm.
will be a flexible working environment for them for when that time comes in their life. And that can definitely be true. But I just go to like it just give yourself grace. Like just don't overcommit things in your mind of
Mhm.
like what you think it's going to be
Yeah.
because every situation is so different. And I mean, it's been a journey for me in that. So a lot of excitement, a lot of empathy, and a lot of just like, I wanna like mama them a little bit.
I could see that.
So maybe this will help this
There you
episode.
go. There you go. All right. Well,
So
start us into that. Tell us kind of about your journey because starting to be stay-at-home mom, wanting to do this, that's kind of like where yours started, wasn't it?
yeah. So yes, it was. So just for reference, our oldest will be 8 in September,
Mhm.
and our youngest is about 5.5. When I first started Missy P Sweets, it was in October of 2018. So our youngest was almost 2.
Mhm.
And and I've talked about my journey before. I kind of like fell into it. I was searching for like creative outlets and things. I knew I didn't want to go back into corporate life. I was in advertising and marketing, but I had never been without a creative outlet. So
Mhm.
um, I was like throwing dinner parties all the time and just like finding ways to like do something. And so I fell into it. And that fall was the first time that oh no, wait, that was her second year of Mommy's Day Out. So she was going 2 days a week. So that was where I started. That was my journey of starting. I had a little 2-year-old at home, and we had a what, 4.5 year old, and 2 days of Mommy's Day Out. And my husband, Mike, at that time he was traveling a ton, which is also part of the reason of us kind of deciding that for our family it made the most sense for me to stay at home because really what are we going to do when you're traveling all the time? I mean, he was traveling overseas and he's in the tech industry, so it was just a lot of travel. But for me with that, there were plenty of nights that he was gone and I have these babies at home and they go to bed and I was like, well, my personality type is not like, I'm just gonna like watch TV, like, a
Yeah.
ton. And I wanted to be productive. I was like doing cross stitching while I was watching TV because I'm like, at least I'm like doing something productive
That so fits
with
your
my
brand.
time. Yeah, it was stimulating my brain. And so that was kind of my journey starting out. So I'll pause it there.
Okay.
What's your situation now? How old are the
Mhm.
kids? And what was your situation from a child and child care standpoint when you started?
So I have an almost 8-year-old. She'll be 8 at the end of the summer. And then I have a 9-year-old. So when I first started, like, going all into it, they
Mhm.
were 2 and 3. So,
Okay.
they were little, I was also working full-time in corporate, so in the
Mhm.
very beginning, as you guys know, this story, I don't wanna bore you with it anymore, but yes, I was
I'll
doing
link
corporate.
to I'll link to Chelsea's kind of
Mhm.
background story up here, and, in the back, I would have linked to mine.
So you guys can dive deeper into that part of it. But I was working corporate America, and this was just a hobby after work. So I was pulling super late nights. Go watch the video; you can dive into it. So at the time when I was working corporate, my mom runs a at-home childcare, so my kids were going there. But once I ventured into doing this full time, I had both the kids home with me full time while I was doing cookies. So
I don't
I
think I
didn't.
knew that. I think I thought that they were still, like, doing daycare with your mom at that time.
No, no, I did
Okay,
full
so
time.
when you went into full-time, were
Mhm.
they still 2 and 3?
Yeah, they were 2.5 and almost 4.
Okay, and was
So,
there any Mother's Day out or preschool or
nope,
anything? No,
nope,
okay.
I did not do that. I kept them home. I worked and did full time. And then my son went into kindergarten. So, yeah. Yep, I had him his last, like, what would have been preschool.
Yeah.
So, I did that, and then, my daughter was with me every single day until she started, kindergarten last year. So, I've always had one of them home with me. So,
Yeah,
I never did I mean, if it was a super, super busy week, then my mom would be like, "Oh, hey, send them on over and we can do
yeah,
something." But other than that, no. I always
yeah,
had them, with us, and yeah, so now they're a little bit older.
yeah. Do you feel like when they both went into school, did that change things for you as far as, like, your business and growth and what you were able to do? Or do you feel like all along it's kind of, like, been a steady.
No, it's been the same. If anything,
Yeah.
I ended up cutting back a little bit this year,
Mhm.
just because of multitude of different reasons on it. But no, I was doing the same. I was actually doing more when they were home than I
Yeah.
was when they were at school. So there was no
So
like,
yeah.
like I have so much time. I will say my kids are very independent.
Mhm.
And I think that is an adjustment. And I know a lot of people on our little survey that we did talked about
Mhm.
mom guilt and being like, oh, I don't have time to play with them. I don't have time. I know your answer, but for everybody who doesn't, are you the mom that sits and plays, or what does that look like for you?
Yes and no. Um, I will not answer every beck and call. I don't schedule my day necessarily around, like, playtime with them. I was always really big on a schedule.
Mhm.
Um, and play dates were huge for me. Library times were huge for me. Being present with them, I guess, is more so how I would explain myself. I'm very present with them.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, sitting on the ground playing Barbies for hours is not it's not my jam. If it's like making up a story or something, like those moments, I like choose key like times to be like so that they have that piece in our memory banks of, those things. But what would you have thought my answer would be?
Yeah, I would say you're 100%. You're more of a player than I am.
Yeah.
Like when you do your timers, if you haven't watched that episode, Melissa does timers where it's like
Yeah, and
playtime for so long.
I'll spell the timers out here in this case too, but I don't know. I've seen and I've had friends who are more of like the full on. I guess this is what I would say. I was not the mom that, and this took me a while to get to, and it was really hard for me to accept. I was not the mom that was 100% fulfilled with only being the mom. And there are
Mhm.
moms who are wonderful at that. And a lot of times they have a teaching background or a preschool background or education background of some sort. And I don't know, maybe I'm too selfish, but
I don't think you are.
um,
I'm sure a lot of
I
moms
mean,
feel this way.
I love those moments. I love making special moments with them. Um, but and especially too, I think when they are like babies and when they're super young toddlers, that is really hard because they're not mentally necessarily stimulating you. They're not really talking to you a ton. And that phase can be really hard with that. And I think that's kind of where the phase where I strived to find like, you know, something for myself.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, there are moms who are like, oh no, they're like professional moms.
That's how we're gonna list it, professional. Are you a
I mean,
professional
it's
mom?
probably like your mom is like, she did daycare and everything. She was probably like very, I don't know.
Yeah,
But
yeah, I mean, she's always around kids, but she was never either the player, like, she never sat down and, like, played Barbies with you and all of that, but I have
yeah,
multiple siblings, like,
yeah.
there's, like, a whole school of us, just kidding, there's only 4, but it feels like that with all the babysitting kids and stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm very similar in the sense that I don't sit and play, like, I was a very independent child, and so I
Mhm.
would play, like, Barbies for hours, like,
Oh, yeah.
sun up
Me too.
to sundown, leave me in my room to be and go. And it's funny because my kids kind of followed suit in that is they love to
Mhm.
play together, but they are also just very good at their own alone time.
Yeah.
So we each kind of, meaning Tommy and I, have stuff that we do with them. Like Tommy is very much the Legos and take things apart and put them back together and that type of like hands on. Um,
Mhm.
I'm more of the creative in the sense of like I will color with you or I will go garden. I'm very it has to be interactive. Like I'll go on bike rides, I'll go on hiking with you, I will garden with like all of that fun stuff in a different
Yeah.
sense. Tommy is definitely like the movie goer. He will
Yeah.
100% do movie marathon. I cannot sit still that long.
Yeah.
Um, I will fall asleep if I sit still that long.
Yeah.
So I'm more of like my kids are at an age now where like the Fortnite dances. So we'll be like, cool, let's learn the Fortnite dances. So that's kind of
Yeah.
like my area of it. But I mean, it was hard being a mom of littles and seeing parents that are like, first is playtime on the floor, and then we move on to craft bin, and then we move. I'm like, oh my gosh, my kids are over here. Like, as I'm working at the table, my daughter's underneath playing Peppa Pig, and I'm like, cool, let's play restaurant while I work.
Yeah.
So it was definitely that type of interactive was I've always like multitasked. And
Mhm.
so it was
At
just
that
finding
time, were you
those.
identifying as like a stay-at-home mom, or were you identifying as a working mom, or
Oh yeah, no, it was I never was like I never identified as just a stay-at-home mom.
yeah.
Not that there's anything wrong with it, but it was just the transition was so fast, like from corporate over. So I
Mhm.
think I had a week and a half that I didn't take orders just to
Mhm.
get like my space set up and reconfigured. And then it was
Yeah.
boom right into like 20 dozen a week.
Yeah.
So oh my gosh,
Was
so
it more
Jan
late nights back then?
no, no,
Yeah.
nope.
So you
I've
were able
always
to get it
been
done during the day.
Yes, I'm always been wake up early and
Yeah.
get it done.
Yeah.
So I would no, I would actually say there's probably more late nights now, even though I still try and not do late nights than there
Yeah.
was when they were little, which is always interesting when I hear because like when I met you and stuff, you were like, "Oh, my work time is night." And I was like, "No, mine is during the day because I wanted to
Mhm.
keep that like structural hours
Yeah.
because I was used to that waking up going to corporate, being there. So
Right.
mentally for me, I was like, no, that's when I'm most creative. So I need to keep that going.
Mhm. Mhm. And that was a journey for me to figure that out. First off, you're a unicorn in many ways with your kids, I feel like. What happened?
My kids are still sleeping right now. Speak of that.
I know. I'm like, how are you drugging them? Or what is happening? I know you're not drugging them. That's a joke. But
Don't come
yeah,
at
and then
me.
you're like, "Oh, yeah, they were 2 and 3, and I was working full time." I'm like, I would struggle less."
Oh, I mean, there was hard days. There was definitely hard, and it was that feeling of like, am I not doing enough as a mom? Am I putting
Yeah,
my career before this? And so I think it was a lot more of the struggle of just feeling like you were never meeting everybody
yeah.
where they needed to be met, whether it was like the
Mhm.
kids, your business, the relationship, like there's always that sense of it. Even though when
Yeah,
you look at someone else, you're like, "Oh gosh, I could be doing better."
right.
But then
Well,
like that.
and to clarify too, if you guys don't know our journeys, Chelsea went from corporate world straight into like needing to supplement that sort of income, like full
Mhm.
on taking cookie business to a full-time business. And that's her journey. And that's a different mindset in that time, I think, than what my position was. My position
Right.
was always starting out as hobby, and then, oh, like maybe here and there part time. And it kind of blew into like, no, legit part time. Um, but for me, it was always like, this is subsidiary. I am very lucky to have a husband who has a wonderful job, and he's a rock star at his job and has always been able, to provide without me like having to bring in a bunch of cash.
Mhm.
So my mindset a lot of times was, I heard you say, Chelsea, with the mom guilt of like, am I putting my career first or am I not? And I think for me, the decision of staying home was the decision of, um, yeah, the career is at a halt.
Mhm.
and that was the first and foremost decision to me. And so for me, the mindset was really getting into keeping my business slow. I mean, I knew how to blow up that business. I knew how to take it full time if I wanted to. But I and our family made the conscious decision of me being a stay-at-home mom, for a multitude of reasons. And it's that I wanted that experience with my kids. And I know you've said this before too. I wanted to be at home with my kids. Like I wanted to have that time with them. And especially for that time in their life. And I think the hardest thing for me, and we'll get into what everybody's talking about with their struggles, but the hardest thing for me now that I'm going to, in the fall, in 7 weeks, be in a place where, like I call it the graduation of the stay at home mom, of our littlest one is now going to be going into kindergarten. And it's crazy for me to think about. And I'm not the mom who gets like weepy and sad about that. I get
You didn't
excited about it.
bawl?
No, I'm not going to ball.
Did you cry when your
No.
oldest went?
Um, no. I cried when she graduated preschool.
Uh-huh.
But I think part of that was because it was the vid happening, and it
Oh, yeah, I
was
guess so.
it
Yeah.
was just a different experience. No, I cry at other weird things. I cry like in really happy moments. That's when I
Mhm.
get like the most touched, is yeah, just like those moments where you look around and you're like, wow, like I always dreamed of this, and this
Yeah.
makes me, those are the times that I get like very weepy. But I am very much like a present in the moment person. I try to be really intentional in just like enjoying them in this age and at this time. And like she's ready to go to kindergarten, and I'm
Mhm.
ready for this next step, in life. And so yeah, I call it like the stay-at-home mom graduation of that phase of life. But the hardest thing for me, and moms in general, I think we have to be, I mean, parents in general, the moment that you have a child, you you learn what selflessness is.
Mhm.
You learn what that is. And I think especially for moms, and I can only speak to a stay-at-home mom because that's my experience. Um, I mean, I knew that I have to pull back and I have to wait, and this time is not about me and growing this business necessarily for myself. It's about supporting my family in this realm while my husband's traveling a ton, and and furthering that for our family, and just like being able to be present with the girls. And so for me, it was really, really hard to grow slowly because that's not my mode. Um, and you know this with the cookie chat, like we come up with so many ideas, and it's just we have to grow slow with that too, because it's a second business for us, and
Yes.
growing slow can be so hard. But there's an end. There's an end to that, and there's the time for you. So that was kind of my journey with it. Um and
It's funny.
as far as like the nights for me, I did not have, I mean, our youngest is more independent, but she's very attached to me.
Mhm.
Um And my kids were definitely the ones where it's just like, mom, 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 and just like on me at all times. And I mean, I would carry them all the time. I had the carrier. I lived in that thing with our second kid. And I could not get into a creative flow during the day. I couldn't do it. I could sketch and I could color my icings and I could make dough. I could cut out cookies. But as far as actually sitting down and being able, I couldn't get into a flow because I would be interrupted all the
Mhm.
time, or you never knew when they were going to have a long nap versus a short nap. It was always like the nap time hustle. And so for me, I was like, okay, the only way this is going to work is like it started with when Mike was traveling. And so the nights he would travel, I would have a cookie night and I could get into a creative flow and stay up as late as made sense for me. And now it's hard for me to be creative during the day. Like
You
that's
still are
gonna,
up to that night.
yeah, that's a transition for me to figure out how to be creative during the day now. But that's where the nights
Yeah.
came into play for me because it was the only time that I could be uninterrupted.
Now that you say
So,
that, thinking about it with my kids is I think my kids are super affectionate and yes, but they're not like how Melissa said, always like on you and stuff.
mm,
And I think part of that was because my kids went to daycare. Even though it was at my mom's house, is there was that separation of like, hey, I have to drop you off. Hey, I have to go to work. So they were like, peace, you're not here. Cool. We like our life still continues.
yeah.
So in the transition, then I don't think it was difficult for them to be like, hey, I have to work. They're like, oh, okay. So they could just do their thing. So I think that kind of helped
Oh,
in the process
100%.
of it.
Mhm.
Um, when my son went to kindergarten was only 3 hours a day, 3 hours a day.
Oh, you had half day.
Ugh.
Mhm.
We had, oh my gosh, if I can remember correctly, I think it was 11:30 to 2:30.
Okay.
So it was
Mhm.
like right in the middle of nap time for
Oh,
my
yeah, great.
youngest.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I think that's also why she is just so go with the flow because she's
Yeah.
like, whatever. She's like,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, they're both super easy, but she's just my down for whatever style. But yeah, I think that kind of played into it. And with the whole drive of like the identifying as a stay at home mom, like thinking on it, it wasn't so much like I was kind of playing both fields. Like, yes, I was full time stay at home mom slash full time running a business. But I think the drive of knowing I have to bring in income
Mhm.
to this day still is a drive because if I cannot bring in the income, I cannot be a stay at home mom. So they
Mhm.
kind of play into each other.
For
And that was
sure.
my whole reasoning of wanting to leave corporate is I wanted to be present for the drop offs, the pickups, the classroom parties. I was class
Yeah.
mom, all of that type of thing. The PTA, like I wanted to be involved in those things, but if I didn't bring the income, I don't get that luxury. So where sometimes it's the opposite of I'm going to stay at home and like in your case here,
Yeah.
and then the luxury of the business, mine is flipped is the commitment has to be the business. So the luxury can be being present for the family.
Yeah, that's a really beautiful way to, like, look at that. That makes so much sense.
Yeah, so there's just it's a different drive, and again, it's that fear of I think that's where fear comes when you're running a business full time, when the
Mhm.
world's changing, whether it be all the craziness that we've encountered. I don't even know what besides aliens in the past 3 years,
Yeah.
there's really nothing we haven't hit,
Yeah.
or 2 years going on 3, is that fear of, like, if this doesn't work out, I don't get to be with my children.
Yeah.
So, versus some people are like, "Oh, man, I lose that hobby." It's like, as a mom who needs that reverse, it's I lose being with my kids, which is
Yeah.
more scary, which makes more of the drive to, like, stay committed. So, I don't know, I feel like there's never a perfect answer for moms on this because, for example, before I knew you, like, if I took you as an example, I didn't know you were only part-time. So I think that mirror and those curtains are kind of like being revealed in today's world
Mhm.
on social media versus when we both kind of started. You never knew if somebody was part-time hobby creator, if they were content creator. It was just they're a cookier.
Yeah.
So you're looking like comparing like, "Oh my gosh, they're doing all these beautiful cookies and they have kids," and I'm like, you're never living up to the social media expectation of it. When in reality, that one set they've been working on for 2 weeks and they're just filming the content, but they would never come out and say that. So I think nowadays we're seeing a little bit more, which I appreciate, of content creators or cookiers in general just stating like, "Hey, no, this is the craziness of life." Do you feel like that's helped you, or has that, because as you
Oh,
were saying, like your
totally.
business?
And it absolutely has. I love it when people show their process.
Mhm.
And especially, I mean, the stories I always love following are when people are being real about like being a mom and the kids and the craziness. I know that's I always get feedback of like, please continue sharing that journey. And
Mhm.
I don't show our girls as much on social media as far as their faces or things like that, but I still try and share like these journeys or the funny moments or like the crazy moments and stuff because I think that is important. And that is, I mean, that's a part of my journey with it, you know? I mean,
Mhm.
that's such a part of my journey. But no, I would agree, and especially with content creators, and I know that everybody is like not on the Reels bandwagon like us, but I do think that the great thing about it is that you're seeing so much more processes because there's a lot of people who don't want to show their face in Reels, which I totally get.
Yep.
So you're seeing so much more of process. And I love seeing the Reels where it's like the 30-second reel and then the real time and just like
Yeah.
all of those things. I wanted to go back really quick before we move
Yeah.
on to kind of like hitting some of these that things that we got from people and our tips for that. But I completely agree with you when you were talking about working and that your kids like knew like this is mom working. I guess we go right into the advice piece of this, but whenever I was doing it with the girls, I think because it was a hobby and I wasn't thinking about it necessarily as, I mean, I knew eventually one day it would be, but in the moment I would just say cookies. Like mom
Oh my
used to eat.
gosh.
Is there a fly again?
There is only a freaking fly when we film. Oh my gosh, I swear.
The fly.
It's
It's
like
okay. The
it
cookies are
knows.
safely in the cookie room.
Oh my
Um,
gosh, yes. Pegs me in the forehead. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
no, you're
Continue.
okay. Attack the fly.
It's like our
Um,
freaking mascot up in here now.
we should come out with fly swatters.
Oh my gosh.
But oh yeah, so I always referenced it just as cookies, or they knew mom was doing cookies and stuff. And I feel like the older they got, I started saying, no, mommy has to work.
Mhm,
And I started referencing it as that. And I wished that I had started referencing what I was doing as work earlier. Um, and some of it's just like it helped give me confidence of like, no, this really is work. And it helped set a boundary of like, they know daddy works, you know, they know
mhm.
daddy works and they know how they need to behave when daddy's working. They don't always do it, but they know the concept of it. And I wish that I had been saying that more. I think it's hard too when it's like baking because it's such like a domestic sort of like thing, like household thing. And like a crafty thing, I guess, but no, like I'm making money off of this and it's actual work. And especially now that I do so much on the computer and stuff, it's like an easier transition. But I would
Wait, real quick
encourage
on that.
uh
Did it take you a while? Like, did you say, "I'm a stay-at-home mom," or did you say, like, "I'm a work from home mom, I'm working."
oh gosh,
That identity crisis.
I was so bad. I fumbled. I used to fumble so bad at this when people ask me what I did.
Your
And
elevator pitch?
yeah, to Mike's credit, he would always like like I'd be like, "Oh, I'm a stay-at-home mom and I do cookies." And then Mike would always jump in. He's like, "No, like she's really good." He's like, "She's crushing
Michael,
it."
the hype man. Hello,
I
Michael.
know. I know. And so, yeah, eventually I think I gained enough confidence but I mean, I was probably in it for like a year before I was
Oh,
like,
really?
oh yeah, it took me a while to really kind of because I think I was still struggling with like, no, I need to be a stay-at-home mom first and I need to like
Mhm.
be putting that first. And so for
Did
me,
it take
like
away from that?
I don't I mean, I don't think so. Like I was still like I was hustling, I was doing pop-ups and things, but I think it's just I don't know, it was just like 2 different modes, you
Mhm.
know? And so and it's hard, like, I felt like cookies were still, like, a newer thing in my area, so it's also, like, the explaining of, like, what you do and then, like, all the questions and stuff, so
The
yeah,
questions are always the killer.
oh my gosh, yes, and,
I
like, "Oh,
remember
well, I need cookies for so and so's birthday," and
oh
then you have to
gosh.
be like, "How do I say I'm booked, like, 4 months out without sounding douchey?"
Visit my website and I have my
Yeah,
availability. I don't know it off the top of my
yeah,
head.
yeah,
Yeah, the questions I felt were the killer part in that. Like, I've shared before, one of the higher ups at the company when I left was like, "You understand you're
mhm,
leaving a corporate job to make cookies.
uh-huh,
Do you understand what that sounds like?" Yeah,
mhm,
I'm fully aware what I'm doing.
mhm,
No, I feel like as a that transition of, like I said, I was kind of balancing both hats in a sense, or wearing both hats in a sense, that when people would ask, like, "What do you do?" And I was like, "Oh, I own a small business and I am creating cookies for events," like your kind of 10-second elevator pitch.
yeah,
And people are like, "So you're a stay-at-home mom?" I'm like, "No, I'm a full-time business owner that gets the luxury of staying at home with my children."
yeah,
And they would be like, "So, like, you're a hobby?" I'm like, "No, it is a full-on income."
mhm,
I'm like, so you're a stay-at-home mom that bakes
uh-huh,
cookies, okay." Like, it would just be
oh,
so
yeah,
dismissive, and it was a lot of, like, people that I had interacted with in corporate world, like, that was their
yeah,
response, was they could not wrap their mind around, like, you can be both. It
yeah,
was like you had to be one or the other. You are either, like,
mhm,
a part-time, like, oh, so you have a part-time job or, like, a hobby, or you were a stay-at-home mom, like, you could not be the 2 relationships couldn't be married, and I was like I think I was so adamant about that,
yeah,
and that's where, like, with the cookie chat and stuff, first came up with the idea. Is like, no, I want people to know, like, you can do both. You can have both and not feel that guilt, because there
oh,
was
yeah,
that guilt of like, okay, if I say I'm a stay at home mom, it's taking all the hard work away from the business that I created.
right,
But if I say I am a full time business owner, is it diminishing the work I do as a stay at home mom? Because that is a full time
mhm,
job too. So
mhm,
it's like, I don't know. I just was very, I still to this day am strong in the conviction of like, I can do both. And if you tell me I can't do both, then watch me conquer both better than you've ever seen. Like
yeah,
that's almost a motivator for me. But I can definitely
yes,
see where some people like taking that time. So I was, yeah, it's interesting for me to hear that, for you to say that, because
yeah,
again, I'd
nowadays,
peg
it's
you
like
as a
it's
crier and a
now I know nowadays, it's yeah, I'm just like, "Oh, I own a bakery." And then it's like "Oh, is it?" And then I'm like, "No, it's out of my house," and that always, like, gets eyebrows too, and I'm like, "No, it's legal."
yes. I
And,
just say I operate under a cottage food law for Arizona. They're
yeah,
like, "Oh, you
yeah.
have a
Well, and
cottage food?"
now
I'm
it's
like,
yeah, it's even crazier now. It's like and then with cookie jar, I'm like, "Okay, how do I explain that?" I'm like, "Oh."
yeah.
So, yeah, anyways, but yeah, I'm so glad that we walked through this whole journey of ours. I feel like I learned some new information about you.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah,
Sames.
yeah.
Samesies.
Hey guys, just a quick little snippet here. We have so much information on this. We are obviously very passionate about this topic as we are both moms running businesses. So we are breaking this up into a two-part. So next week we will be finishing up this whole mom life, mom struggle episode for you guys. So be sure to like, subscribe down below, find us on Patreon down in the show notes, and we'll see you next week.
Make sure you ring the notification bell so when the next one gets posted, you are alerted first. But I am Chelsea with Rolling in the Dough AZ,
I'm Melissa with Missy P Sweets. May your cakes never be dry.
and your icing be shiny and crater free. Have a good one.
Bye, y'all.